Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about my mid-season awards for the 2019 fantasy football season. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the fantasy football season and how the first 8 weeks of the season has progressed and who has really been the league MVPs and the team MVPs thus far. As we all know, the fantasy football season is 16 weeks and we've already finished halfway through that. So we're going to be going over the fantasy MVP, breakout player of the year, comeback player of the year throughout the first 8 weeks of the season, kind of give you my thoughts, and then also a couple other awards that we will be going over. Before we begin today's video, let me remind all of you, if you haven't yet already, please click that subscribe button, join the community, press the bell notification button to stay up to date on my latest content. We're ever so close to hitting that 12,000 subscriber mark, which would be absolutely incredible. And I thank all of you who have already subscribed and are a part of the community. If you like today's video, please don't forget to click that like button. All right, guys. Hey, I hope everyone's doing well. All right, we're doing a little bit something different, right? We're going over my mid-season awards. So we have a couple good awards here. How many awards total? What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total awards. So we got a jam-packed show today. Obviously, the results are all here in the winner's envelope, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But we have a variety of awards, right? We have some players that have accomplished a lot throughout the first 8 weeks of the season. Only probably some of them, having played 7 games, have still managed to do a lot thus far, and they need to be acknowledged and congratulated because they have really been fantastic for many of us fantasy owners. And then there are some other players that on the flip side have not even come close to what they either produced last year or what we anticipated them to accomplish thus far this season. Yes, there is a lot of time left. Again, we've only finished halfway through the fantasy football season. We have another 8 weeks to go, and there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of these guys to at least somewhat salvage their year, but only time will tell. As of right now, I want to talk about players that have already thus far this season had some pretty good performances. Starting off with my first award, I want to talk about the comeback player of the year thus far. We have 2 nominees for this category. Players that missed significant time last season due to injury. And guys that, really, thus far this season have been incredible. Just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background, I don't want to use a singular player multiple times. So if in fact you believe they should have been nominated for said category, don't worry about it. They will be named a little bit later because perhaps maybe they're winning another category. But the 2 players and the 2 nominees for today, let's go ahead and read this. All right, for comeback player of the year, our 2 nominees are Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams. After coming off of an ACL injury last season, he is 100% back and better than ever. Cooper Kupp is the safety blanket of this Rams offense. And for a team that made the Super Bowl last year, yes, came short, he is the only piece of this offense that has been consistent thus far this season. 58 receptions, 792 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns. As of right now, has 138.6 fantasy points in half-point PPR scoring formats and is the number 2 wide receiver, an incredible comeback player of the year. Just months off of an ACL torn last season, the dude is back and he is torching the league and he's taking it by storm as the best player on his respective offense without a doubt in my mind. Cooper Kupp is the first nominee. Moving on to the second and last nominee of this category, we have Leonard Fournette. Yes, a guy that missed significant time last year with a hamstring injury. Even once he returned, got himself suspended, didn't play the last week because they were already mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. A guy that really didn't play much last year, but when he did, and he was healthy, he's been a great player in his career. Thus far this season, has stayed healthy, has stayed consistent, has already surpassed 1,000 total scrimmage yards passing and receiving combined. His touchdown total could increase. Hopefully in the next 8 weeks, we can see that get a little bit of a boost. But as of thus far this season, we have seen him accomplish a lot in comparison to last year. Last season, Leonard Fournette averaged 3.3 yards per attempt on the ground, which is absolutely atrocious. And he has made strides at improving that by, a great amount. Thus far this season, averages 4.9 yards per attempt on the ground, which is a huge boost to say the least. Those are the 2 people that are nominated for the comeback player in the award, and the results are, they are in. All right, the winner, Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams, a guy that goodness gracious, was not even considered a top 12 wide receiver going into the season. A guy that was sitting around that low-end wide receiver 2 range from the 20 to 25 spot. I mean, he has been without a doubt an MVP in his own right in fantasy football thus far this season. Needs the respect. I am a Rams fan, so there is a little bit of a bias. It is my show. I'm going to run it the way I'd like. And Cooper Kupp wins, as of right now, the comeback player of the year from weeks 1 through 8 of the 2019 season. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the second category we have here. We have the Kit Kat category. Yes, similar to the chocolate candy bar brand. When you go and you look at your lineup, and you have to start a player every week because of the talent that they are and what they were able to do last season or the year before, that's often difficult because, listen, they are my studs. I always want to play my studs, but sometimes these studs, they just nip you in the butt and they don't help you win fantasy games. So that's exactly this category, because when you go on Sundays and it's midday, maybe you watched a movie, you went to lunch, you were hanging out with friends, and you finally check your fantasy lineup and you look at these said players and you think to yourself, give me a break, because they do not produce and have not been good thus far this season. The 3 people in this category, here we go. Nominee number 1, we have Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, a guy that finishes the number 9 running back last season, thus far this season is the number 30 running back in half-point PPR scoring formats. You want to know what else sucks? Joe Mixon's scored 0 rushing touchdowns this season. It has been rough for the Cincinnati Bengals, starting 0-8. Andy Dalton, a little bit earlier this afternoon, has been benched. I mean, AJ Green's not back. The defense can't stop a soul. This entire team is just atrocious. And as of right now, Joe Mixon is not producing up to where he was last season, and it's not even close. Last season, Joe Mixon was able to produce a pretty good ample amount of fantasy points even when Andy Dalton and AJ Green were out of the lineup. He was still averaging 15 fantasy points per game in the weeks in which AJ Green and Andy Dalton were out and on the IR. Yet, thus far this season has been terrible. Cannot get anything going, and this offense is struggling, and it is hurting Joe Mixon. He is the first nominee in the category. Moving on to number 2, the second nominee in this category we have here, Robert Woods. Yes, Robert Woods, a guy that finishes the number 10 wide receiver in half-point PPR scoring formats last season, is a guy that has 0 receiving touchdowns and is the number 24 wide receiver in half PPR scoring formats right now. A guy that has just fallen far and away farther than we would have ever imagined. Yes, Cooper Kupp is the number 1 of that team, but Brandon Cooks hasn't done anything much. And this offense, yes, they can continue to score a lot of points, but it's not going in the direction of Robert Woods. And boy, has it been tough, because when you look at Robert Woods and you think, this is a wide receiver too. This is a guy that should be in my lineup every single week, especially with how good the matchups have been. Atlanta and Cincinnati in the last 2 weeks. Yet, when you look at the lineup by the end of the week, you think to yourself, give me a break, Robert Woods. Come on. That's the second nominee. Moving on to the last nominee in this category, we have 3 nominees. We have number 3, Zach Ertz. All right, Zach. So here's the thing. Zach Ertz last season, again, like I've said before, broke the record for most receptions by the tight end in a single season. And thus far this season, with only 1 receiving touchdown, is on pace to have a little over half of what he did last season in terms of fantasy points. I mean, it is terrible. Thus far this season, 66.9 fantasy points thus far. I mean, he's on pace for scoring, 120 fantasy points. Last season, the year before that, 220 plus fantasy points in half PPR. This was a guy that was reliable, that was drafted highly, was a top 25 prospect in the flex position going into the 2019 season, and he's been nothing close to it. It's very unfortunate, but yeah, Zach Ertz deserves to be in this Kit Kat category, because when you look at him at the end of the week, you think, give me a break, Zach Ertz, give me a break. All right, getting to the results, we got the winner's envelope here. The winner of the Kit Kat Award for the 2019 Kirchhoff Awards here is Joe Mixon. Interesting. Joe Mixon was a guy that we drafted early in our drafts, a guy that came off the board in the second round. I can't say the same thing about Zach Ertz or Robert Woods. Joe Mixon is a guy that's been extremely unfortunate, the circumstances he's had to deal with, but it happens to the best of us. And Joe Mixon, I can't wait to draft you next year. We'll see you then. But until now, you have the Kit Kat Award. All right, let's move on to the third category we have today. We have here our Breakout Players of the Year. We have 3 names in said category, starting off with candidate number 1, Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Thus far this season thus far this season, he's been incredible. We know that. If we go back to 2018 and we saw what he was able to produce, last season, 58 receptions, 842 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns in 16 games. Already, thus far this season, he is almost matching in every single one of those categories, okay? He has 46 receptions, this season, which is only 12 less than the last year. He has 705 receiving yards, which is 130 less from the year before, and he has 6 receiving touchdowns already, which is only 1 less than last season. Chris Godwin has had a breakout season. There's a reason why he's a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy thus far. And it's been an incredible ride thus far. And I think going forward, Chris Godwin's got a lot more to prove, and he's sure as hell going to continue to do so. He is the first candidate for the breakout, a guy that really didn't produce much, was the number 4 wide receiver on his respective offense, behind Mike Evans, behind Deshaun Jackson, behind Adam Humphries, was given an opportunity to have a big step-up year, and he's continuing to do so, and he's running away with this category, to be honest. Moving on. Number 2, Lamar Jackson, a guy that I had big hopes for this offseason, has really produced just like I anticipated through the air. Sure, he has struggled at times with his passing completion percentage, but has improved. His his touchdown completions have improved. He has had some monster weeks, whether it's through the air or on the ground. And to mention, on the ground, Lamar Jackson has ran for 576 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns in 7 games thus far this season. Not only is he going to surpass the 1,000 rushing yard mark this season, but he's going to run away with the record, whatever it may be, whatever Michael Vick said all those years ago. Just to kind of put it in perspective, thus far this season, Lamar Jackson has more rushing yards than Aaron Jones, James Conner, Le'Veon Bell, and Todd Gurley. Yeah, that's right. And that's pretty hard to bite onto, but that's just a fact of the matter. And Lamar Jackson, a breakout player in his second year after sitting behind Joe Flacco for majority of last season, coming in, taking that team to the playoffs. He's continuing to be just as good this year and leading his Baltimore Ravens team to another playoff berth. Moving on to the last person, the last nominee here, Aaron Jones. Thus far this season, Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. I mean, when we think of Aaron on the Packers, we think of Rodgers, but as of late, it has really been Jones who is carrying this team. Has already surpassed 800 yards in the backfield and 11 total touchdowns while splitting the backfield with Jamal Williams, a guy that has been splitting the backfield and has been doing an incredible amount of work with the opportunity that he's been given. A guy that last season we saw glimpses of him really taking strides forward in this offense. And finally, now that Matt LaFleur has come in and has shifted this offense to a more heavy running, scheme, and the offensive line, who has been so talented over the last couple of years, is continuing to at least show what they're made of up front. Aaron Jones has been an incredible breakout player. All right, drum roll, please. And the winner of this category thus far this season, breakout player of the year, has been Lamar Jackson. Good job, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has been a guy that, comparatively to where you may have drafted him, has been a steal. In fantasy football, especially 4-point per passing touchdown, 4-point per passing touchdown formats, having the ability to have 576 rushing yards. In terms of how valuable that is, it's incredible. It's it's unmatched, and there's a lot of players that sure you may have drafted earlier than him at the quarterback position. We know a lot of them, Baker, that really haven't performed, but Lamar Jackson having a huge breakout season, and hopefully success is coming in his way, or in his direction. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the next category. The next category and award will be the Death and Taxes Award. Now, for those of you who know, the common phrase is that the things that are guaranteed in life, the only two things guaranteed in life are death and taxes. Well, those are consistent things. And I want to talk about consistent players. The two people that I'm going to be talking about today, both people that catch the ball, and two of the most consistent fantasy football prospects thus far this season through the first 8 weeks of the season. Let's talk about them. The first person nominated for the Death and Taxes Award, Michael Thomas. Let's talk about Michael Thomas, the guy that is, as of right now, the number one wide receiver in fantasy, a guy that had 85% catch rate last year. No wonder he's so consistent. Why? Because he catches every single ball thrown in his direction. And not only has this guy struggled a little bit, but even with Teddy Bridgewater in the lineup, the guy has been incredible. Not a single game thus far this season in half PPR has Michael Thomas scored less than 13 fantasy points. He is Mr. Consistent. Again, last season, 85.03% catch rate. This season, 82.02% catch rate. He's staying as consistent as ever. Drew Brees is back. He had 11 catches, 11 receptions, or targets, 11 receptions this past week. Going forward, Michael Thomas is as consistent as they get. He's the first nominee on today's, or on the Death and Taxes Award. Moving on to the second nominee, only two in this category. It is Austin Hooper, a guy that finished as the number 6 tight end last year and has made leaps and bounds over his performances. I mean, he has been incredible. Speaking of a guy who's been consistent, he has only put up one performance of less than 10 fantasy points thus far this season, with Matt Schaub being the quarterback for, last week and this week. He's been pretty damn consistent. Speaking of guys who don't drop passes, that whenever you target them are going to catch it, Austin Hooper sneakily last season had an 80.68% catch rate. Thus far this season, he's only improving. Has an 83.67% catch rate. The guy has been incredible. He is the number one tight end in fantasy. And if you have the privilege of starting him at your tight end position, you're sure as hell is happy that you do have him there, because he is consistent. And here we go. The winner of the Death and Taxes Award is Michael Thomas. Now, let me explain to you this. Michael Thomas wins this award because not only has Michael Thomas been this consistent for the last couple of years, he's not slowing down. The guy has been incredible in terms of breaking records for consistency. This is the guy. There's a reason why Drew Brees broke the record last year for the highest completion percentage. It's because of guys like Michael Thomas that contribute to that. And I do believe going forward, Michael Thomas, one of these guys that in the end of the first round, when all the running backs that you think are gone, or in the second round, when you're looking for a consistent wide receiver one, a lot of people kind of look past this guy. They go for the Hopkins, or they go for the Adams, or they go for the Julio. Still, Michael Thomas has been incredible. He is proving why he is Mr. Consistent and why he needs to be drafted higher in coming years. All right, let's move on to the next category. We have the Harry Houdini Award. Now, Harry Houdini, as we know, famous magician, a guy that has been incredible. Now, let's talk about a little bit of magic, because I want to talk about guys that showed up in week 1 and have disappeared like Harry Houdini ever since. The 3 people that I want to talk about today. Starting off with number 1, TJ Hawkinson, a guy that in week 1 of the 2019 fantasy football season had 22.1 fantasy points in half PPR scoring formats. And since then, where's Hawkinson been? Well, nowhere to be found, because he has disappeared. The guy has only scored 23.4 fantasy points since week 1. And truth be told, Hawkinson just disappeared. He's Harry Houdini in the flesh. That's why he's eligible for this award. Moving on. The next Harry Houdini Award candidate, or I don't know what you want to call it, nominee, Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins started off week 1 with a 42.3 point fantasy week. You got to be kidding me. And since then, what has he produced? Only 28.7 points. Sammy Watkins, when we go back, when the whole season's over and we look back and we look at the raw total of stats and yards you have, we're going to think you were better. than you truly were. But we're not going to forget. We're not going to forget that even still, when Tyreek Hill went down after week 1, and you had so many weeks to produce, and you dropped goose egg after 8, 7 points, 6 points, 4 points, we're never going to forget that. We really aren't. Mr. Harry Houdini, Sammy Watkins. All right, the last nominee for the Harry Houdini Award we have here, Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson's a guy that came out with a 31.4 point week in week 1. And since then, squat, nothing. Why? He's been injured. What a joke. You got to be kidding me. You come out and you baited so many people into keeping you on roster, hoping you'd come back and have a monster week. I know there are still people that are holding on to him, hoping that Deshaun Jackson comes back. Shame on you, Deshaun Jackson. Harry Houdini, you just disappeared. All right, guys, the winner of the category and the Harry Houdini Award winner is Sammy Watkins. Well, it's no surprise. Sammy Watkins screwed over a lot of people. Why? Because not only did he have a monster week 1 that he could have been on your bench for, but he tricked us into starting him every other week after because we thought Patrick Mahomes, no Tyreek Hill, 42.3 point week in week 1, he must be a start. And we tried for an entire month to start this guy. And he killed our rosters and our lineups without a doubt in my mind. He did. I blame you, and that's why you win the Harry Houdini Award, Sammy Watkins. All right, moving on. A couple more awards here, shall we? All right, the next award is the Clickbait Award. Now, I don't ever clickbait my thumbnails. I don't do that. I wouldn't do that to you guys. But to kind of give you some thought process here. Clickbait. It's not great. If you do it, shame on you. As of right now, clickbait when we go back and we look at our drafts and we look at the players we drafted, we had to go and we had to click on said player and we had to draft them. And we were often baited by a lot of players this offseason that have not panned out. So the 3 nominees for the Clickbait Award this year, starting off with number 1, Darius Geis of the Redskins. Yes, Darius Geis of the Redskins. Why? Because we should have known better. We should have known better. The guy was injured. He was injured before the season even started. Got injured after week 1. Maybe he plays in 2 weeks, but maybe he gets injured again. Maybe we should have just known better than to draft Darius Geis where we did. Moving on, the second nominee for the Clickbait Award, Kenyon Drake. Well, we thought to ourselves, well, listen, Kenyon Drake had a great 2018 season. The guy was a top 24 running back. I mean, in terms of being cut out of rushing work with Frank Gore. Frank Gore's now gone. He's going off to Buffalo. There's no one else to run the ball. He's going to get all the work. He's going to be targeted heavily. It's going to be perfect. Guess what? We were all baited into believing that Kenyon Drake could be the running back we anticipated. This entire Dolphins team crumbled around him. Yes, it might not totally be his fault, but I blame you, Kenyon Drake, because I drafted you in leagues and you haven't done squat. Sure, maybe the second half of the year when you're a part of the Cardinals can change everything, but you just have to, we got to hope at this point. Moving on, the last nominee in this category, we have Ronald Jones. Another player we should have known better about, right? Ronald Jones had so much hype. We had, Bruce Arians saying, oh, you know what? He's going to be used a lot. He's going to be used in the zone scheme. We're going to run a lot of shotgun. He's going to be David Johnson, blah, blah, blah. No. Ronald Jones is who he was last year. He is who we thought he was. Ronald Jones is a player that is not going to wow anybody, isn't going to win a job, is going to continue to stay in our BBC, and that's where he's sat, and that's where he's killed many people who have drafted him. And for those of you who drafted him early, I'm sorry. It's unfortunate. All right, the winner of the Clickbait Award goes to all 3 of these people. There's a 3-way tie. All 3 of them were just as garbage this year. That is correct. I am reading here. It's a 3-way tie. Congratulations to Ronald Jones, Darius Geis, and Kenny Drake. Great job by all of you. Good job baiting everybody into drafting you. All right, let's move on. We have 2 more categories left. The next category, the award, is the Charter Internet Award. No, this is not sponsored, but this is the Charter Internet Award. Now, to kind of give you some perspective, these teams, this is a team award, not an individual player. These teams thus far this season have dropped more games than my internet has dropped during live streams thus far this season, which is saying a lot. And the three nominees are the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that started thus far this season 3-5 after going 12-4 in 2018 and winning a first-round playoff game. Regression without a doubt. They're the first nominee. Moving on to the second nominee, the Chicago Bears, another one of these teams, 3-4 thus far this season after going 12-4 last year in 2018, having one of the most elite defenses in the National Football League. They even made Trubisky look good last year. They were that good, even without Allen Robinson. Imagine that. Thus far this season, garbage. People are asking for Trubisky to be replaced. The home crowd is booing them by halftime, and they're winning the game. It's bad. And the last nominee for the Charter Internet Award goes to the last nominee is the Cleveland Browns, a team that has started 2-5 this year and look worse than they were last year. Last year, 7-8-1, an organization that with so much hope and promise this offseason, with the acquisitions they made, with the building, the firing of coaches, and the reestablishing of the organization, we thought, could this be the year? Unfortunately, it hasn't been. That is our last nominee. All right. So the winner of the Charter Internet Award for just being a garbage team thus far this season goes to this. Is this correct? The Los Angeles Chargers. Congratulations, guys. You guys have not only been able to produce, not only do you have so many Pro Bowlers. Look at that defense. Bosa, Ingram, Hayward, King. You bring in Thomas Davis. You still have Perriman as your middle linebacker. Is it Perriman? I don't remember. You have a clutch defense, and then all of a sudden you have your offense is just as good as ever. You get Hunter Henry back. You still have Mike Williams. You still have Keenan Allen. You still have Melvin Gordon come back. You have Phillip Rivers. Austin Eckler's playing out of his mind, and guess what? You guys can't even win more than 3 games in the first 8 weeks. It's a joke, and that's why you deserve to be the Charter Internet Award winner of 2019. First 8 weeks of the season. All right, guys. I know you've all been waiting for this. The MVP award for the 2019 fantasy football season. We have our 3 nominees, starting off with the number 1, Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey's been incredible. Thus far this season, having only played 7 games, he is the number 1 running back, scoring 189.3 fantasy points, which is on average 27 fantasy points per game in half-point PPR scoring formats. Is this a surprise? It shouldn't be. Many of us already had him as a top 3 back going into 2019. He was drafted as such, and a guy that from weeks 9 through 16 of last year also averaged 27.15 fantasy points per game in the last 16 games. The last 15 games, he's averaged 27 points. Even without Cam Newton for so many of those, Christian McCaffrey has been incredible. 1,000+ yards, 10+ touchdowns in 7 games. This guy is unstoppable, and there's a reason why he is a fantasy football MVP nominee. Whether he wins or loses tonight, he's a winner in my eyes. Moving on, the second nominee in the category, no surprise, another running back, because that's how fantasy football works. We have Dalvin Cook, running back for the Minnesota Vikings, a guy that this offseason, a lot of hype surrounding him, sure, but a lot of injury concern. In 2017, torn ACL. In 2018, a hamstring injury that plagued him for almost the entirety of the year. Finally was able to get back in the last quarter of the season, and had to split carries with Latavius Murray. This year, coming in, the offensive line shaky. The offense, what are they going to do? No Latavius Murray. The offensive line has been so incredible. The blocking, the offensive scheme, everything has surrounded Dalvin Cook. There is a reason why through the first 8 games of the season, he has scored 178 fantasy points. He is the number 2 running back thus far this season. 1,000+ total scrimmage yards, 9 rushing touchdowns or total touchdowns. He's been incredible. Dalvin Cook, a guy that is leading his team to a 6-2 record thus far. is a fantasy football MVP candidate. Therefore, he is on the list. And the last MVP candidate for the fantasy football season, yep, you guessed it, the New England Patriots defense. That's right. A defense that, if they were considered to be a running back, would be the number 3 running back in fantasy football this year. Why? Because they have 173 points already. 173. I just said that Dalvin Cook in half PPR had 178 thus far this season. The Patriots have 173. Now, you may be thinking, Andrew, come on. Like, it's a defense. They're incredible. Who would have guessed? Yeah, you know, maybe I should have told you that they were going to be the best defense, but maybe I should have told you to draft them. Wait, hold up. Wait. Hello? Yes. Wait, hold up. You have to say this again. Say it one more time. Okay. So you're telling me that in a video this preseason, talking about defenses, I specifically said that everyone should draft the New England Patriots defense? Really? I don't even remember this. How many people watched it? 4,700? Okay, that's a pretty good number. And I told them all for how? Okay, great. All right, thank you. So I'm getting information that I told everybody to draft the New England Patriots defense. So I think we have a clip right here. Going into the 2019 season, what are the defenses that I want to target? Like I mentioned earlier, the most consistent have been the Bears, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Ravens, and the Patriots. Now, in my honest opinion, I think the Patriots at their current value are the best defense to target, and let me tell you why. The Patriots, for the last 11, 12 years, have not lost the AFC East. Why? Because they get to play against the Miami Dolphins, the Jets, and the Bills twice a year each. That in itself, I guarantee you, the amount of fantasy points that Bill Belichick acquires for his team, just playing those teams on a yearly basis, is just going to be inherent value right there that you can't replace. Sure, you can go and pick up the Bears defense in the 8th round and hope to Jesus that Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, and Matthew Stafford don't torch them this year. You got to hope, though. But for a fact, I know when Bill Belichick gets to play against inexperienced quarterbacks like Josh Rosen, it's going to be Fitzpatrick for a little bit until he gets replaced, like Sam Darnold, like Josh Allen, it's going to be extremely easy for that defense to score points. And the Patriots have been so consistent defensively, even with losing pieces on a yearly basis, they still manage to be a great overall defense. Even losing defensive coordinators, they've still been extremely consistent. So in my eyes, the Patriots, they're a for sure defense that at their current value, they're not really coming off the board quickly. Like going around, I'm seeing people, obviously the Bears, the Jaguars, the Ravens, the Rams, those are great defenses. The Vikings, the Chargers, the Seahawks, the Broncos, the Cowboys, maybe the Browns, but the Patriots, I'm telling you, are extremely undervalued. And in terms of checking off all the boxes, in terms of points per game given up, last year they gave up the 7th fewest points around the National Football League. The year prior, they only give up the 5th fewest points around the National Football League in terms of points per game scored by opposing offenses. So they've been consistent for the last 2 years. On top of it, they cause turnovers. They'll score touchdowns. They have an easy schedule. I think it's just a perfect recipe of checking off all the boxes. All right, thank you for watching that. So now that we've all kind of gotten on the same page, we see that, you know what? I did suggest that you should draft the Patriots defense. And I pretty much told you exactly what was going to happen this season with this defense and how clutch they would be. Sure, I didn't think they would be the best and be a fantasy football MVP candidate. I didn't anticipate that, but I did anticipate this defense to be monstrous, and that they've been nothing but that. They've been incredible, and I can't say any more about this defense really putting the team on their back. It's 173 points. It's amazing. They'd be the number 3 running back in fantasy. They have more points than Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones has 11 touchdowns this season. Yeah, that says a lot. All right, we got the envelope. We're looking at our winner here, and the winner of the 2019 weeks 1 through 8 midseason award fantasy football MVP is Christian McCaffrey. Congratulations. The guy, again, like I mentioned, is averaging 27 points in fantasy, half PPR, in the last 15 games. It is incredible. He has done as much without Cam Newton as he is with Cam Newton. This guy is unstoppable. He is matchup proof, and he is not slowing down for any reason. Congratulations to Christian McCaffrey, and congratulations to all of the winners. Despite, if you even won the Charter Award or the Kit Kat Award, you should be happy. At least you won something today, because typically you don't win during the season, and you hurt a lot of people. So thank you everybody for watching. Hope everybody enjoyed this video. Hopefully we can go ahead and we can have another award ceremony at the end of the season. I'm hearing something in my earpiece saying that my director is saying that hopefully the production quality can increase by that time. Maybe we can get a live stage or something, or some backup dancers, or maybe some, a violin so they can play me off stage. But again, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody for watching. If you like today's video, please click the like button. And until next time, which will be tomorrow, talking about wide receivers, I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys. Peace.